and I decided to take a short trip to our favourite part of Dorset. It is here that we stay in a tiny shepherd's hut under an ancient cragged oak tree, tucked deep into a pocket of woodland close to Lyme Regis. In spring we are greeted with woodland floors smiling with primroses, willow alive with the sight of their silvery buds, and hawthorn blossom filling the air with its sweet almond scent. Ben wanted to take me on a walk he had planned for us. I didn't know anything other than it was probably going to be something spiritual, standing stones perhaps, or a coastal path which led to a fossil-strewn beach. As we walked along pathways lined with hart's tongue ferns, wild violets and chattering masses, the road began to sink, and it felt as though the trees were becoming taller. It was the first warm day that we have had of spring, and I felt relief as I had worn a silly white cotton dress rather optimistically. So we walked on, beckoned by the sun's beams stretching through the tree-root skyline above us. It became clear that we were walking a Holloway. The Anglo Saxons called these passageways Hola-weg, meaning sunken road. These mysterious lost roads secretly meander through much of Dorset's countryside. You may have driven through some which have been tarmacked and are now used as roads, but these very holloways we are walking through are only reachable by foot, although whilst we are here we watched a man on a Vespa trying to navigate them. Some have been paved with the flotsam and gypsum of brick and old pottery, but mostly the steep towering banks are made of sandstone. Centuries of feet and cattle walking these roads have only made them steeper and more pronounced. Some say pilgrims and even smugglers would use this route, as it leads directly to West Bay, to the sea. I soon realise why Ben has brought me here. The carvings in the sandstone are beyond entrancing. The green man, the spirit of the forest, is the reason we are here. There is a moon, an ammonite, a Celtic pattern, and a pair of embracing hands. It is unlike anything I have experienced before. The richness of the canopy above us, and the flora and fauna combined with the magic of the carvings and the history of the people and the folk that have used these pathways for centuries. Ben and I cannot believe the peace that has surrounded us. The air is now much cooler, dank. This is to be expected as we walk the sandstone banks which are 20 foot high with a further 30 foot of trees. You feel as if you were shrinking as your feet continue on. During the day these ancient lanes feel glorious. Birdsong and spring flowers envelope you, but at night I can imagine these shadowed lanes feeling dark and treacherous, vulnerable to highwaymen or a darker kind of magic perhaps. Local folklore speaks of Dorset's fairy folk, the Colpexes, inscribing and carving into these banks with their long stony fingers. But look out, sometimes these stony fingers have been known to break off. These are also known as belemnites, the torpedo-like fossils. You are supposed to place these belemnites or colpex fingers under your pillow, and at night your greatest dreams are said to come true. Since our visit here, I have read that there is a bioluminescent moss that grows here called goblin's gold that glows in the dark like carpets of emeralds. I feel these mysterious pathways give us access to a deeper history, and there is something that also feels spiritual and comforting almost, knowing that our ancestors walked these paths over many centuries before us, and are now home to a rich diversity of plants and wildlife. As we walk back along the holloways towards the direction of the village, the banks begin to shallow, and it feels that we have left behind our shrunken fairy folk bodies and returned back to our human scale again. I spot a welcome sight at the end of the lane, the village pub, and we are now beckoned inside.
That's right up my alley. You're watching that in bed?
After 2 swift halves, we walk 5 minutes down the road to seek out the village church. Historically, the village was well known for growing flax and hemp, which was used to make ropes and nets and sold in neighbouring Bridport. The church dates back to the early 14th century. Its striking barrel vault roof was built by shipwrights from West Bay in the 15th century, but concealed behind plaster for many years. The church was restored not once but twice, once in 1818 and once in 1920. The 1920 restoration was notable because much of it was undertaken by the parishioners themselves. Earlier, in the 1880s, the church acquired a stained glass window that was important in the arts and crafts movement. The stonework was designed by Edward Pryor, who also built Holy Trinity at Bothenhampton and restored Burton Bradstock Parish Church, as well as designing Pier Terrace, the most prominent building at West Bay. The glass itself was the work of William Letherby, who was a friend of William Morris and co-founded the Art Workers Guild. Just 5 minutes from where we're staying in our shepherd's hut lies a piece of coastline which is very dear to my heart. We always come here for fish and chips, and we sit and we listen to the gentle lapping of the waves. We were enjoying the sounds of the ocean, but soon it was time to go and get our fish and chips. Then I heard the ring, the folky twang of a band warming up, and as we got closer I said to Ben, it sounds so much like a band we love called Mad Dog McCrea. Then there was the poster, and it was. So we stopped and we peeped through the door and we had a listen, a dance and a sing-along. If Kipper hadn't have been with us, we definitely would have gone. But instead, we stayed by the cosy glow of the door and we watched, before going to get our fish and chips, and then sitting by the sea and eating them, which, as everyone knows, is the best way.
Go.
Back at the shepherd's hut, we lit the cosy fire and we fell asleep to the sounds of the owls. It was the next morning. Ben had made the most delicious bacon sandwiches, which he ate with gusto before heading out for a morning mudlarking. Sadly, I have no footage of the mudlarking because actually at the time I had no intention of going back to YouTube or creating any more videos. So all the videos you have seen were actually not intended for YouTube at all, but I have managed to patch together a video. Anyway, we went back to the shepherd's hut, we lit the outdoor fire and we listened to folk music. And that was that. Thank you so much for coming along and watching our Dorset trip. I have lots more content coming soon. Please subscribe if you don't already. And the last video you'll hear is the dawn chorus at 5:30 the next morning, which made me feel like I was waking up in a rainforest. A tapestry of birdsong. Nothing better to end the video on.